Samantha Reed had always believed that wealth was the key to happiness. She never cared about love, loyalty, or hard work, only money. From an early age, she learned how to use her charm to get what she wanted. She dated wealthy men, manipulated them into spending on her, and moved on as soon as their generosity ran dry. It was a game to her, a lifestyle she had perfected over the years. But as time passed, she found it harder to keep up. Wealthy men were becoming more cautious, and Samantha needed a new strategy. She wasn't looking for someone flashy or famous. She wanted someone rich but naive, someone who wouldn't suspect her true intentions. That's when she met Daniel Carter. Daniel was a reserved man in his mid-30s, known in his small social circle as a cryptocurrency investor. He wasn't the type to flaunt his wealth, but he had built a solid fortune trading Bitcoin and other digital assets. While most people his age were focused on traditional careers, Daniel had taken a different path, one that required patience and intelligence. He spent hours analyzing market trends, making strategic investments, and ensuring his wealth grew steadily over time. He wasn't careless with his money, but he also wasn't suspicious by nature, an ideal combination for someone like Samantha. Their paths crossed at a quiet cafe, where Daniel often went to work on his laptop. Samantha, always on the lookout for opportunity, noticed him sitting alone, deeply focused on his screen. She watched as he occasionally checked his phone, his face lighting up with satisfaction whenever he refreshed a page. Curiosity got the best of her, and she decided to approach him. With a carefully crafted smile and a casual demeanor, she struck up a conversation. Daniel, unaccustomed to attention from someone as captivating as Samantha, was caught off guard. She played her role flawlessly, pretending to be fascinated by cryptocurrency and eager to learn more. Her questions were simple yet strategic, designed to make him feel like an expert. The more they talked, the more Daniel let his guard down. He found Samantha refreshing. She seemed genuinely interested in his work, unlike most people who dismissed his passion as boring or overly complicated. Over the next few weeks, they spent more time together. Samantha made sure to be attentive, asking about his investments and subtly steering the conversation toward his assets. She learned that Daniel stored a significant portion of his wealth in Bitcoin, secured in a digital wallet. But what intrigued her the most was a separate wallet containing 5 Bitcoins, which he treated as an emergency fund. He had mentioned it casually, not realizing that those words had planted the seed of greed in Samantha's mind. As their relationship progressed, Samantha moved in with Daniel. To him, it was a natural step forward, a sign that their bond was deepening. To her, it was a golden opportunity. Now she had direct access to his life, his habits, and most importantly, his money. She studied him carefully, noting when he checked his wallet, where he kept his important documents, and how he managed his security. It didn't take long for her to discover that Daniel had written down his recovery phrase, the key to accessing his Bitcoins, on a small piece of paper hidden inside a book on his shelf. She knew she couldn't steal the money right away. Daniel was too careful, and any sudden movement could make him suspicious. Instead, she played the long game, continuing to build his trust while secretly planning her move. She started asking more about how Bitcoin transactions worked, pretending to be interested in investing. Daniel, proud to share his knowledge, eagerly explained everything to her. Little did he know, every detail he revealed brought Samantha closer to her ultimate goal. As the days passed, her patience wore thin. She had been with Daniel for months, and she was growing restless. The value of Bitcoin had been rising, and those 5 Bitcoins were now worth even more. The temptation was too strong. Samantha decided it was time to act. All she needed was the perfect moment, one where Daniel wouldn't see it coming. Samantha knew that stealing Daniel's Bitcoins wouldn't be easy. He was careful with his investments, and any sudden activity in his account would raise red flags. She had spent months studying his habits, but now it was time to put her plan into action. She couldn't just take his recovery phrase and transfer the Bitcoins in broad daylight. She needed to ensure that when she made her move, Daniel wouldn't be in a position to stop her. The plan had to be executed flawlessly, leaving no room for suspicion. She started small, testing the limits of Daniel's security. She would casually pick up the book where he had hidden the recovery phrase, pretending to admire its cover or flip through its pages. She watched for his reaction, but Daniel never seemed to suspect anything. He trusted her completely, which only made her more confident. She took mental notes of how he logged into his digital wallet, the websites he visited, and the way he secured his funds. The more she learned, the closer she got to the perfect crime. The biggest challenge was time. She needed a window where Daniel would be unconscious or too groggy to notice what was happening. That's when she came up with a simple but effective solution: sleeping pills. She started adding small doses to his tea at night, just enough to make him sleep deeper than usual. The first time she tried, she watched closely as he sipped his drink, unaware of what she had done. Within an hour, he was fast asleep, barely moving. She waved her hand near his face to test his alertness. He didn't react. It was working. Satisfied with the results, she continued her routine over the next few nights. Each time she adjusted the dosage, ensuring that he wouldn't wake up if she made noise. She even practiced moving around the apartment, retrieving the book, and pretending to type on his laptop while he was asleep. Everything had to be perfect. Any mistake could cost her the fortune she was after. As she waited for the right moment, she checked the value of Bitcoin obsessively. The price kept rising, making her greed grow stronger. The 5 Bitcoins that Daniel had tucked away as an emergency fund were now worth more than $300,000. The thought of having that much money instantly available made her restless. She started imagining her future a life of luxury, far away from Daniel and his dull routine. She could travel, buy whatever she wanted, and never have to manipulate another man again. The final step was ensuring that the transfer would go unnoticed. She created a new cryptocurrency wallet under a fake identity, one that couldn't be traced back to her. She practiced logging into it multiple times, making sure she could complete the transaction quickly when the time came. Everything was ready. She just needed to wait for the perfect night, one where Daniel would be in his deepest sleep, unaware that the woman he trusted had been planning to betray him from the very beginning. The night had finally arrived. Samantha had spent weeks perfecting every detail, ensuring that nothing could go wrong. She had been patient, but now, with Bitcoin's value continuing to rise, she couldn't wait any longer. Tonight she would make her move. She prepared Daniel's tea as usual, adding an extra dose of the sleeping pills to ensure he wouldn't stir. She watched closely as he sipped it, her heart pounding with anticipation. Within minutes, his eyelids grew heavy, and he mumbled something incoherent before lying back on the bed. Soon, his breathing slowed, and he was completely still. She waited for another hour, just to be sure. The apartment was eerily silent, the only sound coming from the ticking clock on the wall. When she was confident that Daniel was in a deep sleep, she carefully got out of bed and made her way to his office. She moved quietly, her footsteps light against the floor. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the book on the shelf. She had held it many times before, but tonight, it felt heavier. She flipped through the pages until she found the slip of paper with the recovery phrase. The key to Daniel's wealth was finally in her hands. She hurried to his desk and opened his laptop. Her fingers moved quickly as she typed in the website for his digital wallet. When prompted, she entered the recovery phrase, watching as the screen loaded. Her heart pounded in her chest as the balance appeared before her eyes: 5 Bitcoins sitting untouched. It was all hers now. Without hesitation, she copied the address of her own secret wallet and initiated the transfer. She triple-checked every detail before confirming the transaction. A few seconds later, the screen displayed a message confirming that the Bitcoins had been successfully sent. Relief washed over her, followed quickly by an overwhelming sense of victory. It was done. She had stolen the money, and Daniel had no idea. All she had to do now was put everything back in its place and act normal until she could disappear with her fortune. But then, she made a mistake. As she placed the book back on the shelf, it slipped from her grasp and hit the floor with a loud thud. Panic shot through her. She froze, listening for any sign of movement from the bedroom. For a moment, there was nothing. Then she heard a faint rustling of sheets, followed by the creaking of the mattress. Daniel was waking up. Her mind raced as she tried to think of a way out. But before she could move, she saw him standing in the doorway, his eyes groggy but alert. His gaze flickered to the laptop screen, where the transaction confirmation was still visible. Confusion turned to realization as he looked back at her. He knew. In an instant, Daniel reached for his phone, likely to call for help, but Samantha acted on instinct. She grabbed the heavy paperweight from the desk and swung it at his head with all the strength she could muster. The impact was sickening. Daniel staggered, a pained grunt escaping his lips as he collapsed onto the floor. Blood pooled beneath him, but he was still alive. His fingers twitched, and a weak groan escaped his lips. Samantha's breathing was ragged. She couldn't let him live. If he survived, everything would be over. Without hesitation, she rushed to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and returned to finish what she had started. Samantha stood over Daniel's lifeless body, her chest rising and falling in rapid, uneven breaths. The room smelled of iron, the thick scent of blood filling the air. Her hands trembled, still gripping the knife, her mind struggling to process what she had just done. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. She had planned everything so carefully, but now Daniel was dead, and she had to cover her tracks before it was too late. Her first instinct was to make it look like a robbery. She wiped the knife clean and placed it in Daniel's hand for a moment before smearing a bit of blood on the doorknob, hoping to stage a struggle. Then she rushed to his bedroom, pulling open drawers and scattering clothes onto the floor. She grabbed his wallet, a few expensive-looking watches, and threw them into a small bag. It had to seem as if a thief had broken in, killed Daniel, and fled in a panic. The next step was getting rid of any evidence that tied her to the crime. She stripped off her blood-stained clothes and stuffed them into a plastic bag. In the bathroom, she scrubbed her hands under hot water, watching the red swirl down the drain. Her heart pounded against her ribs, her ears ringing as paranoia set in. Had she left any fingerprints, any strands of hair? She retraced her steps through the apartment, wiping down surfaces she might have touched. Time was slipping away. She had to leave before someone saw her. Carefully, she opened the front door, peeking into the hallway. It was empty. She stepped out, closing the door behind her, trying to maintain a calm appearance. With the bag of stolen items tucked under her arm, she hurried down the stairs and out into the night. She walked for several blocks before stopping at a public dumpster. With a quick glance around to ensure no one was watching, she tossed the plastic bag inside, burying the evidence beneath a pile of trash. Next, she pulled Daniel's phone from her pocket. She had grabbed it from his nightstand before leaving, knowing that its location data could place her at the crime scene. Without hesitation, she walked to a nearby bridge and hurled it into the dark water below. By the time she returned to her own apartment, she was shaking. She kept replaying the moment Daniel had woken up, the horror in his eyes when he realized what she had done. But it didn't matter anymore. He was gone. The money was hers. She convinced herself that she had done what was necessary. As she checked her crypto wallet, her heart steadied. The 5 bitcoins were still there, untouched. A fortune at her fingertips. She had won. She had gotten away with the perfect crime. Samantha spent the next few days carefully monitoring the news, waiting for reports of Daniel's murder. She avoided checking her crypto wallet too frequently, fearing that any sudden movements could raise suspicion. She needed to lay low, act normal, and most importantly, show no signs of guilt. When the news finally broke, her stomach twisted. Local cryptocurrency investor found dead in his apartment. The report confirmed what she already knew. Daniel's body had been discovered after a concerned co-worker noticed his absence and requested a welfare check. The police suspected a robbery gone wrong. There was no mention of missing bitcoins, no hint that anyone suspected her. She had done it. She had committed the perfect crime. Days turned into weeks, and Samantha allowed herself to relax. She moved to a new city, changed her appearance slightly, and even treated herself to a luxury apartment. She told people she was a successful investor, flaunting her new wealth but never revealing where it had come from. Life was good, and she was finally free from the limitations of her past. But then, something strange happened. One evening, she logged into her crypto wallet to check on her fortune, and her heart nearly stopped. The 5 bitcoins were gone. The account was empty. Panic gripped her. This wasn't possible. She had secured the wallet carefully, using a fake identity. No one should have been able to access it. Her mind raced with possibilities. Had someone hacked her? Had she made a mistake? Then she received an email. The subject line sent chills down her spine. "I know what you did." She hesitated before opening it. The message was short but terrifying. "You thought you got away with it, but I was watching. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts." Her breath came in sharp gasps. Who was this? Was it the police? A hacker? Someone connected to Daniel? She tried to stay calm, convincing herself it was a cruel joke, but deep down she knew better. Someone had found out. Days later, she started noticing things small but unsettling. A dark car parked near her building for hours at a time. A man in a coffee shop staring at her a little too long. The feeling of being watched, no matter where she went. Then one night she came home to find her apartment door slightly ajar. A sinking feeling overtook her as she stepped inside. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. On the table sat a single object, a printed photo of Daniel, blood pooling around his head. Her hands shook as she picked up the picture. On the back, a message was scrawled in bold letters.